What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Today we're going to be breaking down everything you need to know to get the most out of your weekly training system here in Madden 22. Today we're going to break down everything that is new to the training system, and I'm going to give some little tidbits of information and recommendations from me that I utilize here in the new training system for Madden 22. First and foremost, we need to talk about where to access your new weekly training. That would be under the home page, under your activities page, under weekly strategy. Whenever you click into weekly strategy, it's going to bring up multiple pages with a lot of different information for you. The first page that's going to be brought up is your defensive game planning. If you click in the right stick once, you'll go to the offensive game plan, and if you click it in again or double tap it, it will take you all the way to the team profile page. Whenever you go to the team profile page here, you're going to get various different other tidbits of information and things to do. Let's go ahead and go back, and if you press circle, you can always go back to the previous screens, and we'll talk about our defensive game plan today. Now, on this screen, the first bit of information that I want to direct your attention to is the offensive information of the opposing team. Likewise, on your offensive page, you're going to get the opposing team's defensive information. But for example, here in today's video, we're going to talk about what's going on with the Rams offense. We get to see that the offensive play calling tendency is giving them a favorable run percentage, 51% to 49% passes, and then you can combine that information with the information above that, which would be things like their points per game, total yards per game, pass yards per game, rush yards per game, and that's going to give you a good profile of what's going on with the opposing team. Likewise, you can press triangle to get a full report, and that's going to bring up their situational play calling percentages, which should give you another good idea if you want to dive further into it of what's going on with that opposing team and what you need to be on the lookout for in order to stop their offense. So once we have all of that information, we can then scroll over to choose defensive game plan focus, and it's going to bring up a little bit more information there at the top about their top threat player, give you a little bit more information, and you can go in and select from various different focuses. You can focus to pass deep, medium pass, short pass, quarterback scramble, or you can focus on defending outside and inside runs. These can all be very effective depending on what the opposing team is doing. For example, if they're a run-heavy team with a high run percentage and they are successful on the ground with a high average rush yards, then you might want to be focusing on defending run inside or run outside. If it's a speedy back, run outside is probably more effective. If it's a slower, hard-nosed runner that's going to run between the tackles, then you might want to focus on defending the inside run, so on and so forth. The ones that I have personally had the most success with is defending the medium pass, and there's a very good reason for that. The majority of opposing passes are going to be in that intermediate part of the field. They're not going to be passing deep all day, and they're not going to be passing short all day. If they do pass short all day, it should be pretty easy for you to come up and stop that, and the defending deep passes, I think, is more applied to user versus user leagues where players are trying to go deep all the time. There is a world in which I think that would be successful. However, I just wanted to state that I've had the most success with defending medium passes. Likewise, I've had some success with defending inside and outside runs. I generally struggle against speedy backs to defend the edge, so defending outside runs is one that I lean on quite a bit. On this page, you'll get even more information. Down there in the middle, the only new piece of information that I really want you to focus on is going to be what bonuses you get for selecting whatever you select. And that's going to be, for example, for outside run, you're going to get increased block shedding, better tackling, better play rec, and better pursuit. Those bonuses are going to change depending on which one of these things you are selecting. The final thing to talk about here on this page is going to be the player health options. You can see if you scroll over that, you get top 3 players there to take a look at, but if you click into it, you're going to get an overall view. On the left side, you're going to get an overall defensive fatigue meter and percentage. Likewise, you're going to get individual meters for every single player at their position on the left-hand side. They'll list all of the starters at the top as well as their backups below them, and you get a picture for all the starters. This can be helpful in determining which players you want to focus on the right side here. On the right side, you're going to get to select the practice intensity, whether it be full pads or half pads. There are going to be drawbacks and negatives of both of those. If you're going full pads, you're going to get higher XP and game plan focus boosts. However, you're going to have a higher practice injury chance as well as lower fatigue recovery. When you go with half pads, you're going to get lower XP and game plan boosts. However, you're going to get more fatigue recovery and less injury chance. So you're going to have to play this off depending on which part of the season you're in, how much fatigue your players have. Are you focusing too much on one part of your team, whether it be starters or backups? Do you need to switch that around a little bit? You have options here, and it's never going to always be one right answer for everything you do in this situation. Next up, under the roster tab or roster section of this page, you're going to select every single position, or you're going to have the option to select every single position, whether you want to focus the practice reps on your starters, your backups, or your split reps. At the top of the screen, again, you get a nice description. Starters means starting players will get the most reps and will earn higher XP. Likewise, split reps will mean it will be even between backups and starters, whereas backups means that the backup players will receive most of the practice reps, and this is going to essentially bounce back and forth all season long for you guys depending on what you're trying to do. Generally speaking, I'm going to try to focus on my younger players. I try to focus on my younger players, so I'm not always giving all of the reps to my starters. Yes, you get game plan boosts for doing these reps with your starters, but if we're talking about a position like a Bobby Wagner, who is an elite middle linebacker and he's going to be great for you no matter what, it's probably always going to be beneficial to you to focus on your backups, because number one, you're not going to fatigue your starter, and number two, that starter's probably not getting any upgrades throughout the season anyway. It really doesn't make a lot of sense to focus on that player, and even if you got game plan boosts or not, he's going to play at an elite level because he's an elite player. So with that being said, there are some decision points to be made here, and like I said, it's not always going to be the right decision. I can give you my recommendations as I did on what I do and what I would recommend you do with your teams. However, we're going to go ahead and move on to the offensive game plan page, where you have pretty much the same options. You get another full report, you get all the information you need to make a decision against this team, and then you can go in and select from blitz counter, throwing it deep, throwing it medium, throwing it short, run inside, and run outside. All the same things that you get on the defensive side of the ball, as well as an individualized player health option. Moving on to the final page here, there are a couple of important pieces of information and things to do. You can select your weekly game plan goal here, and this is going to give you more staff points, which you're obviously always going to want to have within franchise mode, because these help upgrade your head coach and your coordinators to increase everything from experience points to free agency signing ability to trade points and things like that. You want as many staff points as possible, so I recommend going in here and finding something that can allow you to get some amount of staff points. A lot of these have partial progression for them, so let's say for 5 sacks, for example, if I get 2 sacks, I at least get a couple of staff points. If I get to 3 sacks, I get a couple of staff points. If I get 5, I'll get the total of 5. Pick something that is conducive to your playing style that you think you could realistically get, or at least get a couple of partial staff points. That would help you along your way in order to get the traits that you need. Next up, we're going to talk about our focus players, which are exactly the same as last year. You get 3 to start with. However, there is an ability to purchase 3 more slots if you upgrade to it. So you select these players in the same way as you have in previous years. However, like I had mentioned, you can unlock 3 additional focus player slots. When in your head coaching talent tree, if you go over to staff modifications and scroll down to after school tutoring, you will have the option to purchase 3 tiers of after school tutoring, which each of those unlocks an additional focus player through you for your weekly training. Now, a couple of pieces of information for you. Each of these upgrades is going to cost you 20 staff points, and you have to have tier 1 of everything behind it unlocked in order to meet the prerequisite to unlock after school tutoring. So it's going to cost you a total of 60 staff points to get all 3 additional focus players, but it's also going to cost you everything up until that point in order to get that, which would be approximately 70 staff points, it looks like. So with that being said, the total in order to unlock all 3 additional focus player slots, you're looking at roughly 130 staff points. So we will then go ahead and finish out our weekly training. Now keep in mind that your training is not locked in. This stuff is not all locked in until you select start training and it simulates through. There have been times where I've come in here, selected stuff for my training and backed out and it did not save. Most often I find with my defensive and offensive game plan, it has a tendency to reset itself. However, the player health options seem to stick. Meanwhile, the selected focus players also seem to stick for me. I have had times where, like I said, things reset in here, so know that if you back out, it is the potential that you need to check over everything to make sure you have it set the way that you originally selected it. So whenever we go ahead and hit start our training, it will simulate. You don't actually have to play anything this year, and that will bring you to these two report pages. Depending on what you do with your team, you're going to get a bunch of different information here. So you're going to get game plan boost information, fatigue information, as well as various different types of XP for your players. And on top of that, injury statuses. In this one, you can see quite a bit of different information. You can see, for example, that my quite a few players are getting additional fatigue, which you can see the +6, +3, +3, as well as the various different XP. You can see the focus player XP of 300. And then you can also see that Rashad Penny got a broken finger, so that's a training injury and he will be out for this week's game. Now, the other important thing to focus on here is that your starters are generally speaking going to get +5 if you focus on them. So you can see Russell Wilson as well as various other starters on the team getting +5 to their boosts. You can see that the players that got split reps are going to get +4 to their boosts. And then oftentimes the players that are backup focused are going to get +3 to their boosts, as well as starter players that are, like you focus on the starters for that position, you're still going to get some boost for the backups for those players. You're not going to get nearly as much XP, but it is nice to know that focusing on those different positions in different ways are going to award you differently in terms of your game plan boosts as well as the XP that you achieve. If you want to see a breakdown of this, feel free to stop the video now and take a look at how these players are affected differently. A good example up at the top of the screen is the difference between Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, and McGo. You know that Wilson is the starter for the team, so he's getting +5 boosts as well as the majority of the XP and bonus XP because we focused on starters for that position. Meanwhile, his backups in Geno Smith and the other guy are only getting +3 to their game plan boosts and very little XP. You're going to get one of these reports for offensive and defensive sides of the ball. You can then continue through these, and the final thing to mention is you will have access to weekly training as you always have through those screens that we already mentioned at the end. But if you've already done your training, you can then come down to training complete, where it will say underneath of it free practice is available. Click into that and it will give you the option to go into your practice mode. So with all that being said, that is pretty much everything that you need to know to take advantage of your weekly training this year. Like I said, you're not always going to have the right answer. It's not always going to be perfect, but I did give you a couple of recommendations for how to maximize this year for you in Madden 22. Things may change as we go forward, and I'll keep you guys updated if they update anything within the game or change the way that any of this works. But with that being said, hopefully you found this information useful or valuable. If you did, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new and want to see more. Comment down below with anything you'd like to see next, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you have a good one.